Today, I want to talk about 9 changes that will make 2026 harder for leaders who are already overwhelmed. These workplace shifts are coming, whether you are ready or not. So if you are already an overwhelmed leader, then you will want to stay tuned for this. If you haven't met me before, my name is Thompson, and I help transform overwhelmed leaders into effective, confident, and intentional leaders so that they can go home on time and take guilt-free time off. Okay, let's get into this. Now, if you are already overwhelmed, there is a strong possibility that you are what I would describe as a reactive leader. So less intentional in your leadership and a lot of firefighting, a lot of reactive responses. So reactive leaders make rush decisions. They lose clarity on what matters and often burn out trying to keep up. Now, intentional leaders will navigate the same challenges, but with less stress, clearer direction, and better outcomes. The difference, not working harder, but leading differently. So this comes from a blog that I've written before. You'll see me scrolling through the notes as I talk through this. 2026 is shaping up to be a year of acceleration and probably not stability. The world is still changing very rapidly right now. If you're in leadership, you are probably already feeling it. The workplace is shifting faster than most companies can adapt. And after a year of redundancies and hiring freezes and everyone frantically experimenting with AI, the forces shaping the work, they're structural, interconnected, and already at play. These changes are going to happen regardless of whether or not you're prepared for them. And the impact is not what's in question. The question is, will you react to them or will you lead through them intentionally? So HR policy and workforce strategy will help, but this will also be determined by how you show up as a leader when everything around you is changing. Here are the 9 workplace shifts that I think are coming in 2026 and how intentional leaders will respond. Okay, first up, why you can't find the right candidate. So we know certainly in the UK, the statistics are showing that unemployment is up. However, we know that there are gaps in recruitment with companies, organizations not being able to find the right candidates. And it's not because they don't exist. The talent market will remain tight this year. The real challenge is that the skills that companies need today are no longer aligned with the labor supply. So the way we've always hired doesn't match how people want to work anymore. Traditional employment metrics haven't kept pace with the realities of contingent work, the gig talent, and hybrid jobs that blend both the technical and the soft skills. Now, a reactive leader is going to panic. They're going to panic and want to hire to fill that gap, which probably means they're lowering their standards. That probably means they're spending weeks interviewing candidates who feel almost right, but not quite, and then end up putting the blame elsewhere for not finding the unicorns that they are looking for. Meanwhile, the team is there trying to keep their heads above water, trying to cover the workload, while you keep the position vacant because you're waiting for someone who doesn't exist. Now, here's where intentional leaders will respond differently. Take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and look to see what skills the team actually needs to deliver on their priorities. They will look to see whether or not they can develop those skills internally through upskilling. And they'll look to see whether or not they can restructure how the work gets done to play to their existing team's strengths. They'll look at the values and the needs of the organization and the existing team before they try to hire. So they're not just hiring because there's a gap, they're hiring in the direction of where they want their team and the organization to go. Skills forecasting isn't HR's job alone. So if you're in a leadership role, you'll want to understand the capabilities of your team, but also what you're going to need in 6 months' time, not just for today. So the horizon scanning, the forecasting is very much your responsibility if you are going to make intentional decisions that are in line with where you're going, with the direction that you're going in. Technical skills can be trained. We know that. Behavior skills, these are the essential skills. and can often have the bigger impact across team performance and culture. We know technology and the technical skills are moving very, very quickly. Behavior skills have always been there, so paying attention to that is going to make a difference. Number 2, how do you keep your team steady when everything else is changing? So we know that things are changing rapidly. 2026 is going to shape to be a strong year for mergers and acquisitions. That's what the data is telling us. That's what the thought leaders in the workplace world are telling us. And HR teams will probably end up shouldering the responsibility of unifying cultures, harmonizing all of those policies, and trying to retain key talent. However, the real story will be how the leaders navigate the aftermath of these deals. So reactive leaders, resistance to change, they're clinging on to, well, we've always done it this way. Potentially there is a risk that they make their team anxious because they're withholding information because they either don't know how to communicate it or they don't know what to communicate for their teams. So this makes the team anxious. It also is at the risk of creating an us versus them dynamic between the legacy teams, and the new people coming in, or where you've got a hybrid of two organizations starting to work together. Now, the risk of that is that you lose your best people because you can't communicate clearly about what's changing and why. So here's the intentional leader response. You lead from your core values, not from the chaos, not the firefighting reaction. You're leading from your core values. So when everything is starting to shift around you, your values create the direction and the consistency for your team. Now, that be your personal values, it might be your team values, it may be the organizational values, but you want to be transparent about what you know, what you don't know, and when you'll know more, take them on the journey with you. The effective communication will be key, and that means listening as much as you communicate. Now, you can use my 4P reset here when you feel yourself in that reaction phase. Pause, prioritize, and then when you have worked out what that priority is, you can proceed with purpose. Now, companies that have already built strong change management capabilities, they're going to have the clear advantage. And if you haven't, start now, because your ability to lead through the ambiguity will define how your team experiences the transition. Now, it might be that you don't see that your organization or your company is likely to go through a merger or an acquisition this year. It's not going to impact everybody. However, the change management through any change within your organization is going to be really important. And those elements that I've talked through will remain the same. Okay, number 3, why your high performers are leaving and your average performers stay. Here's the challenge. People job hug. So it creates bottlenecks in the team. And I'm seeing this a lot. This is coming up in client conversations where people aren't moving on because there isn't that security. So people are staying in the roles because it's safe, because it's secure. So when employees feel uncertain about the job market, they're going to stay in the roles even when they've outgrown them. And that result is then a backlog of high-performing early career employers. They're ready to move, but they're being blocked by the colleagues at the top who are job hugging. Now, reactive leader response, they're going to avoid the difficult conversation, going to hope the problem resolves itself. And they're going to keep people in roles they've outgrown because it's easier than having those difficult conversations, having uncomfortable discussions about performance and readiness. And then meanwhile, your high performers who can't see a path forward will choose to leave. So intentional leader response, this is a culture challenge. It tests how transparent and honest you're willing to be about performance and readiness. Are you having clear, values-based conversations about career progression? Now, not everyone needs to move up. Not everyone wants to move up. Some people are genuinely happy where they are. However, you need to know the difference between someone who's content and someone who is stuck out of fear. 2 very different scenarios. Creating development pathways isn't just about promotion. So you might want to help support your colleagues and those in your team to understand whether they're in accelerate mode and ready for more, or whether they're ready to maintain and they're performing well, not yet ready to move on, or actually they're in sustain mode where they need to support to stay effective. Difficult conversations are kindness when they help people to grow. Avoiding conversations is not the kindness that we think it is. We want to empower our teams. We want to help support them to build their confidence to be able to go where they are ready to go, even if they don't know it yet. Okay, number 4, how to lead through the AI implementation without creating panic. Now, I am seeing this done in lots of different ways. And the challenge is that last year, everyone was experimenting with AI. This year, your team will actually feel the impact of that. Your organization might be starting to have conversations around roles that can be changed, whether roles will be augmented, will certain roles be replaced, but also from an individual perspective, who is struggling to adapt and how can you support them? The speed of adoption will magnify inequality in digital fluency across your workplace. Some people are going to lean into this much quicker than others. And your role as a leader is to support those individuals who are perhaps a little bit more reluctant to gain that confidence to test and try it out and give them support, training, mentoring where there is a gap in their skills or their knowledge or the confidence to take action. Now, reactive leaders, they're going to implement AI tools without preparing their team. They're going to make people feel like they're being replaced rather than being supported. And there's a huge fear out there that AI will replace all jobs. And there is a fear that people feel that they need to be much more advanced in using AI than perhaps they have been supported to do. So we can't just assume that everyone will figure it out. And we need to make sure that we are not creating anxiety and pressure or resistance because we haven't been communicating the why or the how. And reactive leaders are going to end up watching their best people leave because they don't trust where all of this is heading. Now, if you are an intentional leader or leaning into being an intentional leader, then you may well be familiar with VUCA. And this is VUCA in action. So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Check out earlier blogs for more information on VUCA and how it can impact you in leadership. You need vision. Where are we going with this? You need understanding. What does this mean for our team? You need clarity. What's going to stay the same? What's going to change? And you need agility. How do we adapt to this as we learn? You want to be proactive and transparent about AI literacy and upskilling. Don't just roll out the new tools. Explain what's changing, why it's changing, and how you'll support people through that transition. The organizations that take this approach will avoid the backlash that often accompanies technological disruption. And I say that as someone who worked in business change and was overseeing technology changes, system changes, process changes. Those that don't will create chaos, resentment, and that's going to go. Okay, number 5, what to do when your team gets bigger, but your support doesn't. Leading bigger teams with less support is already stretching a lot of people very thin. The traditional management ladder is eroding. Gen Z in particular is opting out. Over 70% prefer to remain individual contributors. Simultaneously, companies are delayering, reducing middle management roles to increase agility and reduce costs. So this leaves a lot of people managing more with less support. Reactive leaders are going to try and do it all themselves. They're going to micromanage because they can't let go. They're going to burn out because they're overseeing way too many people without support. And they're going to end up resenting the team for not stepping up when they actually haven't empowered them to do so. Intentional leaders will recognize you cannot lead a large, complex team the same way you lead a small one. So it's not about trying to reduce the numbers that you're managing. It's around changing your management style, shifting your role from doing to enabling. Leadership is not having all the answers. So the best leaders are comfortable with saying, I don't know the answer to that, and being okay with other people in the room knowing more and knowing better. Your team doesn't want the answers from you. They want direction. They want decisions made. They want you to create momentum for them to follow. They might come to you looking for answers, but that's what they're looking for you to empower and enable them to go and take action. They want you to clear the path to make their jobs as easy as possible. They're looking for clarity in decision-making, not solutions. Now, you can use AI-assisted coaching tools and feedback systems to support your leadership capacity. You can streamline performance processes, focus on empowering your team, not controlling them. Okay, number 6. Why your best people have side hustles and what that means. Now, your best people are probably building escape routes. More employees now, more than ever, are seeking creative outlets, supplementary income, and opportunities to build skills outside of traditional work. Your team members are building businesses, freelancing, creating content, and you're possibly questioning whether or not that means that they are mentally checked out of the role they're in. The stigma around side hustles is fading. Employees are not doing this to disengage. They're doing it to diversify. You're a reactive leader. You're going to see side hustles as disloyalty, probably going to create rigid policies that potentially risk pushing talent away. You might feel threatened when people have interests outside of work. You might make assumptions about their commitment without actually having conversations with them. And losing your best people because you've made them choose, because you've given them an ultimatum. So the intentional leader response, this is about people wanting autonomy. It's about their competence. It's about their relatedness. And these are the 3 core psychological needs from the self-determination theory. So when these needs are not met, and they're not met at work, people are going to seek to meet these needs elsewhere. So have open conversations. Understand what's driving the side hustle. Is it creativity? Is it fulfillment? Is it a financial need or maybe a skill development? The answer that they give you is going to tell you what is important, and it might indicate what is missing in their current role. Now, the more thoughtful modern guidelines that balance both the organizational needs and the employee autonomy will help you to retain your highest performers. But if you've got rigid policies that force an ultimatum and force people to make that decision, you're going to push them away. So check those decisions against your values, the team values, and also the individual's values as well. And check whether or not that policy aligns with how you want to lead. If you need to, then question and challenge the policy. Is it supporting your team while also protecting what is important to the business? And as a leader, you have heard me say this before, your role is to balance, I'm okay, you're okay. The business is okay, your team of individuals are okay. And that balance is really important. Number 7, what your team needs when promotions aren't possible. This is another conversation I'm having with a lot of leaders right now. So where job mobility is limited, career ladders are narrowing, employees will place a premium on development conversations. They want clarity about what's next, how can they grow, and whether the organization is invested in their long-term future. Reactive leaders, they're going to avoid those development conversations because there are not promotions to offer. They're going to assume that people only care about moving up, and they're going to go through the motions in the one-to-ones without actually talking about growth. So a huge amount of avoidance here, and they'll be losing people because they can't see a future with you. Now, intentional leaders are going to approach this differently because they recognize that development isn't just promotion, it's also capability, it's confidence, it's creating a culture where people feel they're moving forward, even if they're not moving up. Companies that provide visible development pathways and consistent dialogue between the manager and the employee, they're going to keep their top talent. Those that don't will see the quiet attrition, especially among their higher performers. When people believe in their own capability, when they see their competence growing, when they feel connected to the team's success, they stay. It's more than simply building self-efficacy in your team. Regular conversations about growth, learning, and progress are not optional, they're essential. Number 8, how to lead contractors and full-time staff without creating 2 tiers. So companies will continue hiring in 2026, but maybe not through the traditional full-time model. So to avoid building bloated departments, more organizations will rely on contingent workers, the gig talent, and fractional expertise. Now, that was a new term for me last year. Fractional employees or fractional contractors, fractional freelancers was all very new to me. But this enables an organization to bring in speed, flexibility, and cost control. We're going to see more of this in 2026, but it does demand a rethinking of onboarding, engagement, and performance expectations. So reactive leaders, they're going to treat those contingent workers as less than permanent employees. Poor onboarding because, well, they're only here for a few months. So poor onboarding, unclear expectations, resulting in frustration when contractors don't perform like full-time team members, even though you haven't set them up for success. The intentional leader response, contingent doesn't mean less important, just means different. Your role is to create clarity regardless of the employment status. What do people need to know? What do they need to deliver? How will you measure their success? Again, if it's helpful to you, use the 4P reset when managing a blended workforce. Pause to consider what this person needs from you for the role that they are in. Prioritize what's most important for them to deliver and proceed with purpose in how you onboard and how you support them. The organizations that figure out how to integrate contingent talent effectively will have that competitive advantage, because those who treat them as afterthoughts, they're going to struggle. Number 9, why AI coaching tools will help you, not replace you. And I say that as a coach. The coaching industry is about to transform. AI-powered coaching tools are providing scalable, personalized guidance to employees and managers. Now, human coaches are not going to disappear. I'm certainly not going anywhere. But the work is going to shift towards high-impact, strategic development rather than routine performance support. And I'm seeing that shift in the clients that I'm working with. I'm seeing more of a demand for that high impact strategic work where people want to be supported for the implementation of what is coming through in the coaching sessions. And it's not what they can piece together using AI. However, AI certainly has its place and is going to be used more by more people this year. Now, reactive leaders, they're going to resist AI coaching because nothing replaces human connection. And they will probably refuse to adapt to new tools, which does mean they're probably going to miss out on the opportunity to give the entire team access to development support because they're waiting for the budget to hire individual coaches for everyone, which is just not possible. Now, intentional leaders, they will recognize that this is the agility in the VUCA model. Can't wait for all the information to come in. We can make decisions with what we know, and then we can adjust as we learn more. AI coaching helps professional growth. It gives everyone access to support, not just senior leaders, which traditionally executive coaching, leadership coaching was always middle and senior top tier management. So human expertise got reserved for the most complex situations. So this is an opportunity. It's definitely not going to replace human coaches. We certainly have our place. The focus will be on expanding access and impact. Intentional leaders will experiment with the tools. They'll learn what works and they'll learn how to integrate them thoughtfully into those development strategies. So as I said at the beginning, these 9 shifts are going to happen whether you are ready or not. This information is being talked about in Forbes, by Deloitte, by other agencies and organizations that are looking at what is happening in the workplace. So this is data-led information and is also backed by what I am seeing in coaching sessions. The shifts are happening. Reactive leaders are already feeling overwhelmed by them, which is forcing them to make rush decisions, and they're losing that clarity. As I said at the beginning, intentional leaders are going to navigate exactly the same challenges, just going to approach it differently. So if you're already feeling the pressure of the shifts, the question is, will you keep reacting to each one individually? Or are you going to develop your leadership approach to work across all of them? And that's what intentional leadership gives you. Not 9 different strategies for 9 different problems, one approach that helps you navigate them all. You're leading from core values, not from the chaos. You're using the 4P reset to catch yourself when you are reacting, to allow yourself to have a more intentional and purposeful response. You make decisions that are aligned to ensure that you stay aligned with what is most important. And you'll probably consider the VUCA framework to be able to help you to move things forward. 2026 won't simply extend the trends of 2025, it is going to amplify them. So the question isn't whether or not these changes will impact you. We need to think about whether or not you will react to them or lead through them intentionally. And my final word on this, the organizations that thrive will be those that build the resilience, anticipate role transformation, and reimagine what healthy leadership truly looks like in this ever-changing world. So those are the 9 shifts. I am intrigued as to what has really resonated with you. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see your comments on what your thoughts are and how you are planning to intentionally lead your teams through 2026. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please do feel free to share with other leaders who will find this of value. I'd love to hear from you, and I will be back again with another video very soon.